Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Untitled Anime Show, where this episode we review the Saga of Tanya the Evil, one of my personal favorites, folks. It really is. Sadar, what do you got for us? Tell us all about it.
Well, the manga of the Military Chronicles of a Little Girl began on an online novel publishing website called Arcadia, and a studio Nut picked it up a studio called Nut picked it up for the anime.
I will say that I love it when it just comes up on the logo and it just says "nut" on the screen. It's the child in me, I know, but it makes me laugh every time I see it. Continue, sorry.
No problem. It was licensed by Crunchyroll, and it's an isekai. Yay! So, an atheist Japanese businessman is killed in the first episode because he has to be for the story, right? But at the moment of his death, he meets an entity who claims to be God, who reincarnates him into a new world that is very similar to Europe just prior to World War One, except it's full of magic. And this Japanese businessman is reincarnated as a little girl with all of her memories of her past life. And she decides that the safest way for her to stay alive in the coming war that, her experience on Earth gave her to know is coming is to join the military.
Yes. So, just to expand on that a little bit. So, during what we come to know as Tanya, during her experience with the entity known as God, or what she refers to him as being X, the, the entity's upset that she does not believe in God, even though she is, or he, prior to the reincarnation, is now confronted with this being who is even talking to him through everyone around him, even a pigeon.
That's one of my favorite parts.
Yes, I do love the pigeon. But the entity's thought process then, in which he expresses, is, well, maybe you don't believe in me or worship me because you've never had hardship in your life. So maybe I'll send you someplace that has hardship, and you will not get another reincarnation. This is it. This is the last time you're going to exist. So Tanya wakes up and is now in the body of a newborn infant dropped off at an orphanage. And yes, this is war-torn Europe. We're getting to the point it's gearing up for their version of World War One. The countries are not the same. The borders are a little bit different, but it's quite. You can tell like this is Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Now that causes a lot of problems for people that go to anime conventions, which we'll get to later on. But the only real difference, other than just the names have been changed to protect the innocent, are there is magic is a real thing, and Tanya has an extreme aptitude for magic. So that's without spoiling everything, which I'm sure we will by the end of this episode. I truly like this one quite a bit, but let's look at the scores that we all gave for this. Going to originality, we have 5s across the board. Sadar, I want you to explain your score on this one.
Well, you know that I've seen more than my fair share of isekai, but I thought that this show took the isekai trope and changed a lot of elements to it. The adult characters reincarnated now as a child. The gender of the person changed from one to the other, and for an isekai, it's incredibly dark. Typically you imagine isekais as fantasy worlds, but this is a war-torn, devastated country that is ravaged by war.
And it's not just regular war. This is World War One. Trench warfare was the most barbaric form of warfare in the existence of humanity, and this is showing that in very graphic detail. So, Duck, you also gave this a 5 out of 5, so thank you for that. But why did you give it a 5 out of 5?
I don't think you could. This is very, very unique premise. They're taken. They changed something that we already learned about in history books and stuff, and they're adding like such a unique spin on it. This is a unique magic system. This is the way all the countries have their own different, versions of flying and stuff, and that's how they do aerial combat rather than, there are some planes, but planes, the dogfights in the sky are done by people wearing boots that let them fly. Like it's just a completely unique and original premise, and there was no room to take any points away here.
Yeah, and what Duck was saying, and this is one of the really unique things I liked about it, is there's not a whole lot of what they refer to as mages that have the aptitude to actually use magic in combat. For the country that they're in, which is the Empire, they are referred to as the Aerial Mage Battalion. And their method of flight is wearing a boot that has comes up to a box, which we never see what's inside the box. It's some kind of mechanical thing that they wear on their chest, and they have a computation jewel which they wear around their neck that harnesses their magical energy and allows them to do what they do. But every country has a different method of flight, and it's really neat. Like the Germans in this case, that it's obviously what they are. They're wearing the boot. When you see the Americans at one point, they're on looks like flying horses almost. So they're the cowboys. You have the Nordics from the northern country where they're on skis. They're actually skiing through the sky. It's actually, but every single country has its own method, and it's the way that aerial warfare was starting at that time period. You were starting to see airplanes where every country was developing their own type of aerial combat like that, and this was not long after the advent of biplanes, which we actually do see in the show. But again, even if you just ignore the fact that it's an isekai. This is one of the most unique stories I've ever seen, and I can't take any points away from it. So, moving on to story, we all gave it 4s across the board. Sadar, you want to explain your score?
Well, again, I thought it was a wonderfully developed story. There's a huge amount of world building. I mean, it's a world war. So I think that should give it a very strong score. The only thing that docked it a little bit for me is I still find it jarring sometimes watching both the anime and the follow-up movie that came out that every country in the world seems to be perfectly content to put 8-year-olds in combat.
Yeah, I can understand that. Duck, your score?
Yeah, so the only thing I took points off for the story is like they switched from flashbacks to like regular like current time for the story, and I don't know if I just missed some of the dates that floated by, or I like couldn't remember what the last date I saw was. It was just hard to keep track of like, okay, is this a flashback or was this the current time period?
I think I know what you're talking about there.
Yeah. So
you
that
guys,
was just that.
You guys might have to explain it to me because I'm struggling trying to figure that out.
It's when she goes back and gets the unique magic jewel. She's in that testing phase.
Okay.
And then it goes right into the story, and I'm like, wait a second, is this current time? I believe it was current time, but yeah. I didn't catch the flash of the date that told me that it was current time again. Understood. So I'm like, and then it's just after a big time skip for her. So is it 6 months after the flashback or 6 months after the last current time? So that's all. I was confused, so I took that point off for that.
I also scored it a 4 out of 5, and I had real hard time not giving it a 5 out of 5. But there's a couple pieces in the story where they just, I think they could have fleshed out some other characters a little bit more. I mean, yes, the show is titled The Saga of Tanya the Evil, not Tanya and Friends. I get it, but she does have a lieutenant that is with her throughout the whole show, and I know for a fact that from the manga she is a Russian immigrant, or their version of Russia immigrant who joined the army of the Empire. What they don't go into, and you don't really find out until the movie, but they still don't really associate it with the lieutenant, is that country sees is a complete communist and socialist country that saw mages as being superior, so that means they're not equal and they should be exterminated, which is the reason she went to the Empire, was to be a mage and not be persecuted for it. I think they could have fleshed that character out a bit more. That's the only real complaint I have about it. So let's go into artwork. Sadar, you gave this a 5 out of 5.
I gave this a 5 out of 5. I love the drawing in the anime, and I know I probably shouldn't let myself be influenced by the light novels, but as great as the artwork is in the anime, the light novels, and you do get some of that art at the introduction and during the credits, it's amazing. I absolutely love the art of Tanya.
Yeah, for anybody who's familiar with the mangas, they do have the cover art that they use for the covers on those books is used during the credits, and it's vastly different than the anime. It is completely different, but it's not in a bad way. You just these still images. I actually have used them as wallpapers on my computer in the past. It's really really great. Duck, you gave this a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, it's. I mean, so I can't really dock many points off for it because this is pretty accurate to the time. You know, you're drawing battlefields and people in uniform, so basically everything's just a slew of the same color. You know, there's not a lot of variant in the color, but it's the real world. It's essentially the real world we're looking at, so it makes sense. You know, and it fits the theme and the emotion. I just, wasn't awed by the coloring. Just, I didn't like the artwork, but I can't dock it because it's accurate. So I just took 1 point.
Again, I had a hard time not giving this a 5 out of 5, but I did give it a 4 simply because there is just a small number of scenes where Tanya is pontificating on her soapbox, and it's usually when she's addressing her troops. And especially right at the end, one of the last scenes, which is a very powerful scene that leads you into how the show could possibly continue and go into the movies and stuff like that nature, where the artwork is abstract. They're not showing the character, not drawn to proportions. Everything's abstract, and it's an artistic thing. I just didn't get it. I don't know why they went that route, and that's the only point I took off. What Duck was saying is everything looks incredibly accurate. The coloring for the military uniforms, as for the weapons, everything is dead on. You do get a lot of brightness when the magic's being involved, but it's not like magic you've seen in other shows where you have somebody casting a spell. For example, when Tanya wants to, shoot an enemy company, she will use her rifle just like any other soldier, but she will use her computation jewel to enhance the bullet with magic. And then they'll be using artillery arrows with their rifles, and that kind of stuff. But when that happens, it is much brighter. But it's much in contrast to what we're seeing with the uniforms and stuff of that nature, and just the gritty world of World War One.
I do want to add one more thing because now I know this is weird, and I didn't know it was weird when I rated it. Her hair gets see-through when it's covering her eyes.
That happens a lot in anime. They'll do it just so that you can see the eyes going on, because its eyes are very important. That's where the expressions are all coming from.
So then when Kosei's glasses are see-through, then it's so it is an anime trope. I'm confused if it's an anime trope or not.
It's an anime trope with the hair. I've never seen it with glasses, and that was a different show. But with Saga of Tanya the Evil, her hair is very expressive. So much so that even in a couple scenes when she's confused, the little hair tuft that sticks straight up it
looks like a question mark.
Yeah, it looks like a question. It starts when she's like inquisitive. It starts flicking. It's unless you're watching for it, you'll miss it. But I thought that was. I get what you're saying on that with the hair, but yeah, I actually liked the way the hair was designed, and it was pretty uniform throughout the whole show. So bingeability, Duck, you give this the lowest score, 3 out of 5.
I think we need to talk about depth too.
Oh, I'm sorry, we missed depth. Duck, let's start with depth. Then we'll get to your lackluster binge score. So you gave us a 4 out of 5.
So they create a good, a big world, and everything. But there's all these characters that I'm really interested in, like the rest of her platoon, when she created that whole special mage unit to infiltrate the enemy. I wanted to learn more about them, and they never fleshed anybody out.
No,
So
you really only had one character who got like his own single story, and he's a minor character, and
exactly,
he's just a random soldier within the unit.
it would have been nice to build the world even more as, a whole army instead of just this one character, who then you can just throw all these characters that have been there through the whole show at in front of bullets, and it's like, okay, cool, that guy had a cool design, but that's it. I like the voice actor.
So, Sadar, you gave this also a 4 out of 5.
I did. I thought that they did a great job of world building for the most part. Again, it's all from Tanya's perspective mostly, but I was impressed with just the amount of minor details. I think we've already talked about how if you're not paying attention throughout, it's very easy to miss what's going on exactly or miss little details that really add to the overall story. The only reason I felt the need to dock this a little bit is because I thought that the whole balance between Tanya's hatred for being X and being X's, for some reason, desperation for Tanya to believe in him as God was kind of flat. I mean, all of Tanya's passion of hatred for this being X sounds like something that you would hear like a 16-year-old devout atheist spout off as to a Christian. It was kind of blah.
Blah. So I gave it a 3 out of 5, which it sounds odd, but typically I like animes that are between 10 and 12 episodes. I do like those. I like the one shots that go through, it tells a story, and is over. We're not just going to drag this into eternity. The reason being is I hate when stories get going and then for financial reasons that they decide, okay, we're not going to make the anime anymore. So the story never gets finished. So but with Tanya, I found myself, this is not long enough. I wanted it to be longer so we could flesh out more characters and we can build more than just around one character. I wanted to know about her entire unit. I wanted to know a little bit more about the enemy units. We have one enemy soldier we start learning more and more about, and some stuff you learn about him is actually what plays into the movie. Which is great, but there's a lot going on with the soldiers on Tanya's unit and within the Empire that I really wanted to know more about. I wanted to know more about the other countries, about the politics of them, because it was really interesting how it's kind of an alternate history of World War One Europe if magic had existed, and that we drafted 8-year-olds into the army. But now we'll move on to bingeability and Duck's lackluster score of a 3. Duck.
I gave it a 3 because I watched it 3 episodes at a time in 4 sittings, and I just, it's not that it was bad in any way. It's just I wasn't super enveloped by the world, and I didn't really care that much. So it was just watching it to review it. I don't like the politics.
You don't like
So,
you don't like Star Trek Next Generation neither, do you?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
I like Star Wars, but I hate the politics. I love seeing the creatures and the planets and all that and the lightsabers, but I hate the politics. And so that kind of drags me out of things because it's like I don't need this. I'm not going to take this away with me when I stop watching the show.
Sadar, you gave this a perfect 5 out of 5.
I did. Again, I've admitted this before in past episodes. I can binge just about anything. But I really got tied up into this story and the action. I got tied up into the politics. I got tied up into, despite recognizing Tanya is not the best person in the world, I really want to see Tanya succeed. So even the episodes that didn't leave us with a cliffhanger, I still wanted to see what happened next because I want to see, is she going to reach her goal? Is she finally going to get a safe assignment? Or is she going to continue to shoot herself in the foot by being so darn competent and so darn good at being a soldier? So I really enjoyed the heck out of this show.
I gave this a perfect 5 out of 5 for binge because I have binged it several times, and I've watched the entire run of the show in a single day, and I've watched the movie, and I'm waiting for the dub of the movie, hopefully. um, but yeah, it's really just an enveloping story, and with combined with the originality, the story, the artwork, I just love this show. If I really have nothing else going on, then I'm gonna sit down and watch something. Unless there's something brand new that's on that I haven't seen yet that I'm looking forward to, I'll just watch Tanya the Evil again. It's just the way it is. So as we go through and we look at our scores, we come up with a meta score each and every show, which is, in this particular case, is a demon in the form of a little girl, and that is 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 demons in the form of a little girl. I was trying to figure out how to word it, and we actually had a discussion before the show who was going to say it, because we figured I'd do it wrong, but they insisted I do it anyway. So on our
And you nailed it, Raz. You totally nailed it.
I did not. But for our final thoughts, do you go out and watch this immediately? Do you put it in your queue, or do you forget about it? Duck?
I say definitely put it in your queue. And if you like war, if you like Band of Brothers or any of those other, if you like movies like that or shows like that, then definitely go watch it right now.
Sadar?
If you like action, if you like if you like magic, if you like isekai, if you just like an engaging story, go watch this now.
And I have to agree with everything Sadar said. Go out, watch this show right now. I'm waiting for a season 2. I'm hoping for a season 2. After watching the movie that came out just earlier this year, I'm really hoping that there is a season 2. Yeah, put it in your queue, but put it at number 1 slot. Go watch it now. So that is all we have for this episode of the Untitled Anime Show. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for new episodes. And if you really want to see us review something, say something in the comments, because we're always looking for new shows. Essentially, we're all sitting there going, well, what have we seen that we can make Duck watch? Or Duck saying, what have I seen that I can make Raz watch? And maybe we need to find something, some diamond in the rough that one of us hasn't seen yet. And go with that. So if you have something out there that is just splendid or something that is just awful, put it in the comments below, and we'll take a look at it. And you might be looking at a future episode of the Untitled Anime Show. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one, folks.
Night.
Night.
Bye.